You are listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network.
من هناك لشوارزنيجر
Va a pegarle Ronaldinho Gaucho. Ya lo hace. Pierna derecha, directo al arco. ¡Golazo! 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 ¡Golazo!
This is Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio, your new live show about the beautiful game in all its glory, with Duane, Rollins and Kevin Laramee. MLS, EPL, La Liga, Champions League, all is fair game. Powered by the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us at sportspodcastingnetwork.com.
And welcome to Soccer Today. Today, Soccer Today brought to you by Skype and all of its frustrations.
We're just a few minutes late, but again, Dwayne, people know me and saw me at the stadium. They noticed that about me, but I'm usually fashionably late.
Yeah, exactly. Skype is a wonderful thing unless it attaches to a wrong Microsoft account and locks you out for 4 days or then refuses to let you answer it. But nonetheless, it's a wonderful program.
Exactly. For the price we pay for Skype, we're still getting our money's worth.
Precisely. How are things up in Montreal right now, Kevin?
Things are a little bit better. We didn't talk about it yesterday because I just want to give my thoughts and prayers to everybody in Quebec City with what happened in the weekend. And something that actually really hit me hard. Somebody that's like people. I don't like when people don't like people. And let's just leave it at that. It's been a difficult few days, but I think love is the answer. Love is the only answer. Love is always the only answer.
There was a lot of outpouring of emotions across the country last night with people just sort of gathering to show their respects. The politicians across the board universally making the right statements, which is in this day and age not always taken for granted anymore. Nonetheless, hopefully this is not something that we consistently see in this country or any country. Sad day, of course, and we do give their thoughts.
No, exactly. So Quebec City, they will have their pro soccer team this year. So at least on the soccer part, the Dynamo, I wish them all the best of luck. Speaking of professional soccer teams, Wayne, today is January 31st.
It is, and some surprising news that we wanted to address off the top here. Indy 11 have put a full expansion bid in. This one came a bit out of left field. I remember talking to our friend Andrew down there last year about the possibility of them getting into the MLS expansion conversation, and even the fans and the people close to those running the situation down there were not making any noise whatsoever. But then out of the blue yesterday, the announcement comes with a stadium plan that's, I'm not sure, completely up and running to its fullest potential just yet. A lot of ifs in there, but nonetheless, some money behind it apparently, and Indy 11 back into the mix now. And with the popularity of the 11, the success of that team in the last year, you'd have to think that they would get a serious consideration. But some other Midwestern cities that are in there sort of ahead of them, we're thinking about them a little bit more right now. But is Indy really, Kevin? And I'll ask you this: is Indy really? To Cincinnati, I should say, really ahead of Indy just because of one good season? Indy's been consistently drawing for 3 or 4 now.
Yeah, I agree. I think Indy have a project that's been built for a few years now, and it has a track record of great fan support, a track record of performing on the pitch, if you're looking at last year. And they have a corporate support in the Indianapolis area as well. And having a lot of smaller market, let's put it that way, bidding as well today. If you're looking at the Charlotte project and other smaller project that are probably going to put their bids in today, we'll know more later, but today is the last day again that MLS expansion bid for this round of expansion. We're expecting 2 teams to be chosen out of the 11 bids that are supposedly being deposited today.
Yeah, and look, the more good bids there are that get put forth in this expansion process, I think the the larger MLS their eyes will get, like the bigger their eyes will get in terms of what they can gather going forward. There is certainly just a lot of money for them to make in terms of expansion fees, and I can't see them stopping, until they hit maybe 32, maybe even, as I've said before, 40 or 48 even. Who knows? Like, you could go high on this situation thing as long as there are people that they're willing to pay. But nonetheless, it is going to be an interesting. We'll obviously have I think, do a lot of attention on the expansion bid in the weeks ahead. We'll probably get some guests on from the cities as we get close to the decision day on that. We don't have Pro Rel, but we do have his expansion competitions, and they certainly get a lot of attention.
You know what? Let's rephrase that. We don't have relegation, but I guess we kind of have promotion.
Well, Indy 11 would be, if you had promotion and relegation in the regular way, Indy would have been the team going up. I'm not too sure that they would have been too excited in Major League Soccer with Chicago going down. They would have been already down, but nonetheless.
Speaking of Chicago, Duane, there'll be an announcement today at MLS. It's making a special announcement in Chicago at Soldier Field. So if you are a listener of the show, you already know what that's going to be about. The 2017 All-Star Game will be announced today in Chicago to take place at Soldier Field.
Yeah, and there was an article yesterday that suggested what team was going to be the opponent of the MLS All-Star team, and it was in Catalan. So there you go.
Well, Duane, we kind of figured that one out with the size of Soldier Field. So I guess we'll see. We talked about Skype. We talked about Microsoft. I guess we're going to see MSN close this summer.
Yeah, precisely. I was saying to look, it'll draw 60,000. I'm sure that MLS will have to negotiate pretty strongly to make sure that a certain wee little fella is playing at least half of that game.
Oh, Messi has to play. Like, if you don't play Messi, you play Suarez, and you eventually make Suarez want to join Ladero in Seattle or something.
Yeah, look, they negotiate so that you have to play their starters for half of the game is usually what it does. They do in this situation. Generally speaking, those big European teams have been somewhat polite when they've come over. I mean, we have seen them lose before. Chelsea lost to the MLS All-Stars a few years ago, and since that time, I think most of the big clubs tend to say, we're going to play hard enough to not lose, but we're not going to be rude. I kind of hope that one of these teams is rude one year and just rolls them, and they would, folks. I mean, they would. Barcelona would roll the MLS All-Stars 5-6-0 if they wanted to.
Yeah, that would be interesting. But no, so that will be announced later today. But it's kind of interesting that MLS has decided to go. Maybe it's an opportunity too. We don't know the details, but the fact that they can get a team like Barcelona, arguably the biggest team in the world, to play the MLS All-Star Game, it's kind of like a confirmation of the rise of the league over the last few years. In that moment, it's not because of the All-Star Game, but because it's a Barcelona game, it will be broadcasted all across the world. It will be popular. It will get attention that even when they played Tottenham or Chelsea, the All-Star didn't get.
Yeah, it won't be, in most of the world, it won't be the MLS All-Star Game they're broadcasting. It will be a Barcelona preseason game that they're broadcasting, yes, for sure. And I don't think there's any arguably about it right now. I know Real Madrid fans might get their back up with this, but based on a lot of evidence out there, Barcelona is by far the biggest club in the world right now, and that has to do with the wee little fellow that we just spoke of. I saw somebody in my gym last night that was a dead ringer for him. I was like, am I working out with Messi? No, that doesn't make any sense. He's not at the Planet Fitness in Toronto. No, that's not true.
Like, you would be like, we talk about Messi and how he's probably the best player ever, and the guy, like, he's not even up to my sternum, and I'm not that tall, so he's actually very underwhelming when you watch him and when you see him in real life.
Yeah, I've heard him compared to, it looks like an accountant walks in because when he wears glasses sometimes off the pitch too. I've heard, so that he'll walk into a room and people will be like, do a double take. Is that who I think I'm looking at? Yeah,
hey,
sure
that guy kind of looks like Messi, but it can't be Messi. He's so small. He's not big. Look at the small like shoulders he has. That can't be Messi.
Yeah, exactly. But he wasn't at the Planet Fitness last night at the Galleria Mall, I'm pretty sure. At any rate.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he wasn't there. But that's still interesting to me, at least. The All-Star Game this year, they're making we talk always about the All-Star Game. We just experienced the hockey one, which was terrible, by the way. It's the worst All-Star Game I've ever seen. But All-Star Game, talk about format change, East-West. Well, we're not getting East-West this year. That's pretty much certain with Barcelona.
No, look, and my answer to fixing the All-Star game is simple. It's to not have the All-Star game, but I do recognize the sponsorship stuff out there. And as we said the other day when we talked about the Soldier Field, rumors that were swirling around, that's what it's about. It's about getting the CEOs out there with their families and giving them a good time to help them as a value add on to their sponsorship of the league, right? Like they like to be treated nicely. They like to be flown into a city. I'm sure that they're going to fly their families in. They're going to send their, I'm not going to be gendered about this. They're going to send members of their family that like to shop to that shopping strip. What's it called? The Million Mile or what the hell? I don't even know.
Miracle
I'm not
Mile?
shoppers.
The Miracle Mile.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, it's like a large shopping area in Chicago. So they'll send them there for the day. They'll go hang out. They'll get to, shake the hand of Messi, maybe get a selfie at some point. I'm sure that'll be involved. And, their kids and their cousins and everyone else, because it's going to be a big ticket for them, are going to go watch it. And the hardcore MLS fan, which is most of our listeners, are going to just look down their nose, what we always do at this game, because we're going to be worried about our players on our teams getting hurt in this useless game. But nonetheless, the vast majority of people don't think that way. And it's something I think all of us that are on the hardcore side need to remind ourselves of sometimes, that we're not normal. And we're not the typical.
Okay, fine. I'll agree. I'm not normal. Okay, fine. I am not normal. But MLS players as well, Duane, I'm just going to take Patrice Bernier as an example. In his last season this year for the Montreal Impact, as a player, his favorite club and culture of football has always been Barcelona. He supports Barcelona. Or a player like Patrice Bernier, there's many other example in MLS that their favorite club is Barcelona. To have an opportunity to play maybe his last All-Star game, if he can get there against Barcelona, is motivation. It will be interesting to see how the players do play and how they approach that All-Star game, because it does bring a certain amount of motivation that you don't necessarily always have against other clubs that are just coming to play a friendly game.
Yeah, they had a commissioner's choice sort of spot for the All-Star game a few years ago. I'll be curious to see whether they are cognizant enough to invite Patrice Bernier into to a game like that, even if he's maybe not playing full-time minutes for leading up to it, just because it's the right thing to do. And, obviously him not having the profile in the United States that he does in Canada might prevent that from happening. And let's hope that MLS does actually remember that it has two countries and sort of address those needs if and when it comes, Kevin. So we'll see. We'll watch that one carefully.
Exactly, but it will be interesting. So today in Chicago, Soldier Field, MLS, to make a special announcement, All-Star game, and all signs point towards Barcelona for the opponent.
All right, let's take a quick break now, Kevin. We'll come back. We're going to have a bit of a transfer conversation because the transfer windows are, of course, closing, and we'll talk a bit about it.
You are listening to Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio. Visit sportspodcastingnetwork.com for more.
There's something about the UK fan and their love of how do I say this delicately? Female sexual aid devices. Kevin.
Okay, where are you going with this?
All right. During transfer day, there's always some person out there that, and I'll just say it, that has a dildo, and they used it to slap the journalist in the face with the purple dildo a few years ago. And today, there was a Reading journalist that was tricked into believing that the club was about to sign a player named Yermas Dildo. If you spell it out, it is Your Ma's Dildo. Anyway, that's my crucial.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll just leave that well enough alone. It is a wacky day, though.
Deadline day. It's deadline day.
Yeah, and we're fast approaching, and it certainly has been kind of a quiet transfer window, and that's kind of something we've seen since financial fair play came into play. That the teams just don't splash as much because, generally speaking, in the January window, you have to spend way over what the player might be worth in order to make a move. Because
premium. You play a premium of having this player leave his team during the season, and usually players, targeted players, teams will know what you need and will bargain a little harder to make sure that they do get more on the other side of the bargain in the January transfer window.
Yeah, you're not dealing from a position of strength, right? Like, I mean, here in North America, we love the mid-season trade deadline, right? Like, we'll have 17 hours of coverage for the hockey trade deadline, which slays me because there's no trades anymore, right? It's so funny. They all sit around pretending it's important. It makes me, it's like the most Canadian day on earth, the TSN trade deadline day.
You have 8 people on desk, on TV, on their phone,
Yeah.
looking at what's going on. And you know what? It's 2017. Just you could be on your own phone and have the same thing they do.
Yeah, well, and the breaking news often too on trade deadline day in hockey world is third liner traded for fourth liner and draft pick. So it's like kind of funny, but blockbusters don't necessarily happen anymore. And it's kind of the same in the soccer world, to get back on track with that. Nonetheless, some stuff to talk about. And I think one of the biggest conversation here in North America, in Toronto especially, is these Javenko rumors just won't go away. The Chinese transfer window, his agent was talking again the other day, saying that the offer was considerable, that they had to seriously think about it, that blah blah blah. This has a lot of people, a lot of cynical people up here saying, oh, he's just a mercenary anyway, he'll go wherever the money is, blah, et cetera, et cetera. You have the sort of deniers up here going, well, he'll never leave because he's a red till he dies or what have you. The answer, of course, is probably somewhere in the middle. It is a lot of money. I do think that it's a big change to move from. It's one thing to move from Italy to Toronto, especially a city like Toronto, like Montreal, that has a lot of Italians that you could get around with your own language and so on.
Chengdu or Guangzhou or Shanghai is a little bit different. The culture shock might be, let's put it this way, a little bit more hefty.
Yeah, and look, that's a factor. You can live pretty comfortably in the city of Toronto for $7.5 million a year, but I do think that, as I said the last time we talked about this deal, that there's probably a bit of negotiation happening and through the media. So Javenko shuts up. This is the way that they do it now. He just is a good little soldier, goes out and does his thing. His agent, plants seeds here and there. He was on Tara's show the other day. If you want to look that up, Red Card Radio, you can listen to the interview there. And they're trying to get a better deal for him. That's the agent's job. So we can get we can not like that. We can think of it cynically, but the bottom line is that's what the man's paid to do. And he's trying to do the best for his client, which is also ultimately best for him too, because he gets commission. But I don't know, where do you go if you're TFC? And I look at it and go, they're owned by MLSE. They pay like the 11th Raptor off the bench, like more than they pay Javenko right now. They can afford more money.
Patterson is making more than Javenko right now.
Oh, quite a bit more, yeah. And Patrick Patterson's he's in the middle of that lineup. We're talking about your babies, and the guys like that are probably making more. I'd have to look their salaries up.
I know. I just like Pat Patterson because I love his name, and reminds me of a guy from Montreal, first ever intercontinental champion. But we're talking about a different sport now. Going back to Javenko, Duane, his agent, he kind of has to play that game too. Why not? If you have an opportunity to get that percentage of that contract in your bank account, you kind of have to at least put the feeders out there. And that's a little bit of what's going on, I think.
Yeah, precisely. And like I said, if I'm they got to keep him for this year. I think that they were so close to the MLS Cup final that if they were to sell Javenko right now, you combine that with the disappointment of losing that final so close the way that they did, and by not scoring a goal. And there were a lot of people that were probably in that stadium for the first time that walked away going, well, I gave soccer a chance and they didn't score a goal, and they may not be willing to come back, especially if the one player they've heard of is gone.
If you just sell Javenko, it might be perceived at a potential, I don't want to say fire sale, because that would include a lot more than just Javenko, but when you take the heart of the team away, it kind of gives that sentiment to the fan base.
Yeah, look, intellectually speaking, I can make an argument where you could sell Javenko and you could then use that money to sign a world-class number 10 that would then complement guys like Altidore and Bradley a little bit more. You'd have that spine still taken care of. Not to say that you want to do that, but I think you could do that in a way that would allow you to be just as good. However, that's not how it's going to be perceived. And perception, as I say many times on the show, is reality in these particular cases. And that would be a very big blow for TFC to overcome from a PR perspective if they were to get rid of their best player. Although that said, when I had to vote for TFC's best player of the year last year, I voted for Josie Altidore. But
well, because he deserved it. Yeah. No, exactly.
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead, Dwayne.
I was just going to say, just the way he played down the stretch, that would be, the reason they were in the MLS Cup final was Altidore, because Javinko kind of struggled down the end because I think he was hurt, and that's nonetheless what's going on. But we're getting off topic there.
I just want to say, speaking of best players and team selling their best players to another team, West Ham United was announced in the last few days. It was finally official. Dimitri Payet is now back with the Olympique of Marseille with a £24 million transfer for West Ham, which is very high. It's close to the amount they paid for him a few years ago. It's a little less, but Payet was obliged to give back 500,000, Dwayne, to West Ham. If you go back to last September, Dimitri Payet had £1 million bonus in his contract that came into play last September, and he decided to go on strike just a few months after. It's weird how those things kind of happen, and it's the timing of it. But because of that clause and the fact that West Ham felt cheated by his lack of motivation, especially after that September bonus, they found a way to have Payet give them back £500,000.
Yeah, look, and I mean, it's one of those cases where they said, we don't have a lot of leverage in terms of making you play for us again, but what we do have leverage is in preventing you from playing. So they went to him and said, look, we'll let you go. We'll do this sale, but you're going to give us back this. And hey, it may seem petty to some, but I think to a lot of people, it's going to seem like fair because, you think about it in your own equation. If you just stopped working, do you think your employer would pay you? Probably not, right? And they just fire your ass. So,
Olympique de Marseille, I have the benefit of having a few friends that are very deep in the Velodrome, that are friends with high people at high places in Marseille. And apparently it's all because of Dimitri Payet's wife. She's not a fan of London, the weather, but especially the lifestyle. Not that they don't like the London lifestyle with the money they were making. It's not that. It's when you're not necessarily able to find your own job, your own career, your own routine in a different city. You might be the wife of Dimitri Payet, the most famous Frenchman who were living in London probably at that instant. But, well, maybe Wenger, who knows. But you don't necessarily have that routine, that comfort that you had elsewhere. And if you add the weather and all that, here's one comment that Payet made that kind of makes it, that confirms that aspect to it. It's like, well, I'm going back to Marseille. It's nice in Marseille. It's warm in Marseille. So when a player says that, the weather was important in his decision too.
It absolutely is. And look, this isn't the first time that a player's spouse has decided that they're not enamored with the city that their husband is playing in.
We
it
saw
won't be
that
the
happen.
last time.
No, exactly. Do you remember Montreal, Jabrowski and Caitlin a few years ago? It's kind of like the same situation on a very different scale.
Yeah, no, it happens in MLS and the Canadian teams all the time because the wives or girlfriends can't, especially the girlfriends. The wives might be able to get away and to get some kind of a work permit, but generally the girlfriends have a lot of trouble working in this country, and they, that can hurt them. It certainly has hurt the Canadian teams in the past by attracting certain American players, but nonetheless, that's a different topic. I found something interesting too. West Ham is offering West Ham fans, anyone who has Piet's jerseys, stirrups, they can take them back to the club and get a replacement, although the club is requiring that you pay them £25 to do that. So this is, of course, causing some controversy because if you look at how much these things actually cost the clubs, they still are making a little bit of money off of the £25 exchange. And a lot of fans are frustrated with West Ham on a lot of different levels. So this is another area that they should just do a free exchange, I guess. But nonetheless, that's another thing that's going on. Which would, free exchange, probably beer all over your damn jersey and all of that. So what's West Ham going to do with them? They're not going to resell them.
No, they're going to cut them up and use it for, I don't know, do a mosaic in the stadium or do like a courte point or something. If they can do what's it called when you quilt, they will quilt. You can quilt the old Payet jersey and make a nice West Ham quilt with it.
Going to have a quilting bee, are they? They're going to gather around and they're going to quilt all these jerseys together. That sounds like something. They could have like a giant, like bonfire night, the next bonfire night, which is not almost for a year, but certainly they could do that the next time. Just have a big old bonfire up there in East London. You could warm the thing there. If it was back in the good old days, they could have used it for heat. Put them in coal.
Put them in the fire. put him in the fireplace and warm up the living room. But just to finish with Marseille and transfer rumors, still been one of the rumors. Alessandrini, left back for Olympique Marseille, will join the LA Galaxy. A left back with a great left foot. That's how you can describe Alessandrini, according to my sources in Marseille. He could be a very good signing for LA. The fact that a player with a left foot that can cross it in or roll it around the keeper is always useful in MLS, being a league where defenders and attackers that are trying to defend always assume you're going to shoot on your right foot. When you have a good left one, you see good results with this.
Quite a bit of MLS rumors floating around. TFC is even attached to a Ruben Kazan, the left back, which is a bit weird because they have what's making people wonder what's going to happen with Ashton Morgan if they sign another left back, because they're not going to move Justin Morrow. But we'll watch that one play out. It could just be a rumor. We just like the fact he's from Ruben Kazan, which is Daniel Squizzado's sixth grade gym teacher. That's an old joke from Twitter that few of you will probably get, but nonetheless, it makes me laugh, which is the most important thing. Kevin, let's take a quick break. We're going to come back with some bits and bites in the show.
You're listening to Soccer Today on SPN Radio. You can find the on-demand version of this very show on iTunes, Stitcher, Feedburner, Podbay Player, Podbean, anywhere you get your podcasts under the Sports Podcasting Network feed. Subscribe to our YouTube page to make sure you never miss a live show talking about soccer today, the MLS post-game show, open lines after dark, 5 rings daily during the Olympics. Make sure you subscribe and give us a follow on Twitter at SportsPodNet and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Sports Podcasting Network. The bits and bites on Soccer Today. St. Clair, you can get their new single, Cheated, everywhere on Google, Play Store, iTunes. Give it a shot. You won't regret it.
All right, Kevin. That's yesterday. The U.S. men's national team played the Chambers Arena, and it didn't go much different than the last few they did had under Klinsmann. They didn't lose, but they didn't win. Didn't score either, a 0-0, and that's, I don't know, does that say anything at all? We weren't able to, but does it say anything at all in your mind, or is it just kind of one of those things? It's January, don't worry about it.
It was Serbia's B team, literally designated on the team sheet as the B team. So 0-0 against Serbia's B team. I don't want to say if it's a success or a failure. I don't think it has that connotation to it yet. It's just the first game under Arena. What was more telling to me is the players that were called into camp and then leaving the camp, the Keegan Rosenberry of this world, that are more getting slowly included in the thinking of probably the Gold Cup roster, but they wanted to get them there earlier on. Same for the Kukutumanias of this world. That was more interesting in the earlier of the camp that led up to this game. But 0-0 against Serbia's B team, when you had, let's put it this way, the U.S. men's national team A-, B+ type of team, it's still a result that you can get something out of it. But I think it serves more as a welcome back fashion for Bruce Arena, a kind of last practice, last dress rehearsal before games start to matter again.
Yeah, I know what's going to matter for Bruce Arena is those next 2 games in the Hacks, which are maybe the most important games the U.S. men's national team have played. Probably, outside of World Cups themselves, I would say that these are the most important games the U.S. men's national team has played in probably 7-8 years. If they were to lose another one, right now everyone's just assuming they're going to start a game taking place. So we well acknowledge that. But if they do lose again in one of these 2 games, then it starts to get a little bit more precarious for top 3, certainly, and top 4, maybe even. And so that's obviously what the attention is. I'll be curious to see what the U.S. does for the Gold Cup this summer. Well, one competition or knockout.
No, that's true. And if they lose one of those two games upcoming, then you let yourself be in a position where one result that doesn't go your way of somebody else could give you a chance of finishing fifth instead of fourth because of 1 point or a goal differential. And you don't want that possibility to exist for U.S. men's national team. You do need 2 wins out of the 2 next possible wins, and that's going to be very difficult. So at least the clean sheet that they did keep, the defensive mentality that they had against under Bruce Arena in that last dress rehearsal before those World Cup qualifiers will serve them. But they do need, again, it's all well and good not to concede, but they need to score goals, and that's the one thing they have been having a lot of trouble to do over the last 12 months.
Yeah. We'll see. It's going to be an interesting hex. And, Americans that like to dismiss it. I do. I listen to a lot of media out there. I'll be organized entirely the Media Cup, but Mexico almost missed the last World Cup. This is not the walk in the park that CONCACAF used to be. That teams like Honduras, teams like Panama, they are much better, and they can. Costa Rica goes without saying. They can compete for those spots. I suspect that the U.S. will be fine. I still do, but if they don't have any room to slip up, especially if they lose one more game, they can probably lose one more and still be okay. But if they lose a couple more, then you're getting into the truly precarious time. But we'll see. Not the best start for the Hex, and as I said, at least it does add a little edge to the atmosphere, which is good for us neutrals watching it, but maybe not so much if you're U.S. men's national team diehard out there.
Yeah.
Kevin, let's move on to something that into Joey Saputo acknowledged the other day that he's now open. What do you think that means?
The open to renovation, it goes into a 5-year plan that Joey Saputo made public over the weekend in different spots. He did an allocution to a business crowd this weekend, and he was talking about his 5 years plan. First of all, he wants to win an MLS Cup in 5 years. He wants to generate profit. So they do generate revenue, but profit is still something difficult for the Montreal Impact to generate year to year. It's talking about still a team that's losing a little bit of money every year because of the cost of operations, and the team, they're thinking in 5 years they want to be able to generate profit from here to 5 years in MLS Cup, bigger footprint, be able to better compete in its own market against a bigger, more followed hockey team than the Impact is with the Montreal Canadiens and their history. So they want to equip themselves better for that fight, and they are giving themselves 5 years for that. Including in that 5 years is some renovation to Stade Saputo. We're not talking about adding seats for now. What Joey Saputo is talking about is making the infrastructures that are present better, rearranging the layout to make it more fan friendly, to rearrange probably where the bathrooms are and how players do get into the pitch so that you don't blockade half of the stands and people can't get out. Those little details that were thought about, but were not necessarily executed the best when it reopened in 2012 after the first renovation of Stade Saputo. When you're looking at the amount that the stadium cost in 2011, 2012 when it was renovated, talking about total cost of $55 million, give and take. If you're looking at Minnesota Stadium and other new stadiums that are going to open, especially with today's expansion bids process going to close tonight, talking about stadium between $150 and $200 million US, they will have to invest in Montreal Impact to compete with those market. More you have luxury boxes that are more well equipped, you can charge more for them, and we all know that luxury boxes is where they can generate a bigger profit than just season tickets. But speaking of season tickets, they do want to cross that 10,000 psychological barrier of season tickets. As we are speaking right now, it's 8,700, give and take a few season tickets sold. They do want to be one of those best teams in the league that have over 10,000 season tickets, and they do want to get to a point where they need to have a waiting list for a season ticket. Right now, it's not the case. You're talking about a lot of teams in MLS that have over 10,000 tickets sold, and a brand new expansion team has over 27,000 tickets sold, season tickets here. So the Impact is one of those teams that are underneath 10,000 right now, but are going to work hard in the next 5 years to become one of those top 5, top 6 club in MLS where they have over 10,000 season tickets and more. Right now, Montreal, as a global assistant and season tickets, are a mid-table type of team.
Yeah, you're trying to create a perception of scarcity, right? That makes people buy the tickets earlier. It makes them more likely to go to the games because they don't want to give them up type thing. It just helps across the board. I know with the Impact right now, having traveled to Impact games in the past, we don't worry. Like I usually don't buy my tickets through the supporters groups here. I just buy the tickets, and I don't really worry about them not being sold out. And I think that when you get to the point where you're worried about teams being sold out, then you can get away with a little bit more. The other area too, and I've talked about this many times before, is that, and you touched on it, is some of the stuff around the stadium can be a lot more efficient. It's very difficult to get food and drink and back to your seat in time and halftime if you're especially in that the newer stand. Yeah. I guess that's the East stand, I guess, and they have temporary stuff, and it's all when I say it's nearly impossible. Like, you just don't buy food in there, and if you make it easier for people to get that, then they will, and you'll make more money on that stuff.
If you know me, I worked in the restaurant industry all my life outside of the podcasting world of sports. And if you're looking at it pragmatically, all right, you want to have more selling points so that the lineups can be as short as possible, so that the guy who wants to buy that beer and has his $20 in his pocket, well, you want to make sure that that $20 doesn't stay in his pocket. It goes in yours. And to make sure that they have time, in 15 minutes is not a lot of time in halftime in MLS, Major League Soccer. And you want to make sure that the waiting lines are not too long. You want to have a 10-person waiting line, yes, but not 40, because you'll have a lot of money left in their pocket. And you want to make sure that that doesn't happen. You want that money in your pocket when you think of a businessman. And if it's worthy to have a few selling points and a bit more concessions, that will be interesting.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I can only speak from the visitor fan of experience, but we go downstairs into that concourse. They had a special beer tent for the Toronto fans the last time they were there, so it was in that area that was enclosed. But if you wanted to get food, you had to leave, and a lot of people that weren't drinking that day took 2 steps out. They had to pee, so they go to the washroom. By the time they get out of the washroom, they just go, yeah, there's no way, and just go back up to their seats. You want to have it so that people can do those 3 things: get a beer, go to the bathroom, get some food. You want that pretty universal in that 15-minute period. And if you're not doing that efficiently, you're leaving money on the table, and that's just another area that they can address. And it's a simple area that they could address too with a well, it wouldn't be cheap, but you could do things to that stand to make more permanent concessions there that would be more efficient.
Yeah, pretty much. There's exactly, because if you've never been to Stade Saputo, it is a permanent stadium, yes, but not every part of the stadium is permanent. You do have the head offices of the Montreal Impact. You do have that part that's on Sherbrooke, the more northern part of the stadium, closer to Sherbrooke. That part is, yes, it's heated. It's a whole building itself, and there's the northern stand attached to it. Then you have the U part of the stadium, which you do have some permanent, the entire structure and the seats and all that is permanent. There's the boxes on top that are permanent. What is not permanent is the concession stands that you have in the bottom. Some of them are rolled in, some of them are built with tables and tents, but those are not necessarily permanent, and you can add more. So either it's permanent or not, there is a possibility to better the offer to make sure that you do answer the demand.
Yeah, precisely. Do you know, Kevin, if they make money when they go to the Olympic Stadium for the games? Obviously, if they sell 60,000, they probably do. But there's games there that haven't sold 60,000.
Cost of operations of the REO are always expensive too. So when you do rent the Olympic Stadium, you do have some costs included. So I'm not necessarily sure that there's more profit coming from the Olympic Stadium. I think the amount of extra headache and extra work it does take to put it up to par every single time you go there, I think it must dilute the profits for sure, because you're talking about extra costs, extra space that you need to cover with security, with ushers, with concessions opening. So there is extra cost added to Olympic Stadium games too.
Yeah, I would wonder whether part of the renovations might be to winterize the stadium a little bit more too, so that they can have the opportunity to play games there that aren't going to sell 60,000. I'm sure that at Montreal, just because of the history of big events there, would probably host an MLS Cup final at Olympic Stadium if the league allowed them, which I'm sure they would because they allowed them to host the Eastern Conference final there. So why wouldn't they allow them to host the MLS Cup final? But
Dwayne,
I mean, there are other opportunities that might not be as big, right?
MLS would love, I think, to have a game at Olympic Stadium for the MLS Cup. Why? You don't have to even worry about the weather. Yeah, okay, fine. You don't want centimeters of snow on the roof, so it caves in. Fine. But outside of that, cold or not, doesn't matter. You're indoors and you can play the game. And yeah, you have to get accustomed to the pitch. But guess what? Club America did. And there was big game in Eastern Conference final. It has become, over the last 5 years, Dwayne, 6 years now, the Olympic Stadium, the moments Montreal Impact had in it, it has become iconic in the soccer world in North America now, just because of the Club America game, because of TFC game that confirmed that 2009 Santos Laguna night as just not a one-off, as a stadium for big North American soccer events.
Yeah, so just have to maybe if MLS Cup final were held there, maybe MLS would make sure that the lines clear where they're on, that they double check those.
Fine, you had to bring it up. You had to bring it up that we can't measure. Fine.
Oh, okay. Real quickly before we say goodbye in the day, we do want to give our thoughts to Mark Webber, who walked away from his job in media over the weekend. I made a request for Mark, and he didn't get back to me.
Now you know why.
I don't know why.
Nothing personal.
He actually reached out to me yesterday to apologize for that, so that he was reflecting on things at a cottage. So we understand that. Might have Mark on here on the days ahead, but certainly it's a tough gig in the local media world in MLS. This is not the first time that we've seen a beat reporter, a very good beat reporter, no longer doing it. MLS seems to be getting more attention on a national scale, but less attention locally. I don't think that's necessarily a good thing, because some of the best MLS reporting out there are those local beat reporters, and guys like us, guys that are on the independent side of things, do our best to fill in the gaps, but we really require and thrive. We utilize the talents of the beat reporters, because they have the opportunity to be around the team in a way that we simply can't afford to be, unless you really hit our Patreon guys. Hit it on to like.
I wish I could be that beat reporter day in, day out, but it's something, like you mentioned, that for now, just the feasibility of it is something out of our reach.
Yeah, so the fact that they're gone just makes it difficult for everyone else. And it's not like the independent guys are going away, but they rely upon the talents of those guys to do their job as well as they do it now, right? That's what I'm saying. So hopefully someone with at least half the talent of Mark, who was an incredibly talented beat writer, one of my favorite in the league, is able to step into that role. But I don't know, media in this country right now, man, it's pretty bad. We saw it with the tragic events that we talked about off the top, saw some failing was there based on the amount of cutbacks that I've had. You won't miss journalism till it's gone, folks. We're starting to miss it already, though, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And little breaking announcement here. Friday's show, we'll have a special guest, and it has been confirmed now. So Cal Ouimet of the San Francisco Deltas, the first ever homegrown signee for the Montreal Impact, will be on the show Friday to talk about his Deltas adventure, to talk about his Red Bull adventure, and of course, we'll touch on the Montreal adventure. I cannot wait to talk to Cal Ouimet live. Well, it'll be live on Thursday, but for you, it'll be on the show Friday.
And Julian de Guzman will be joining us sometime this week. We're still working out the exact time of that. It might be a pre-record. We'll let you know when we know. Until that time, Kevin, as always, say goodbye.
Tomorrow's timing of the show will be a little bit different. Duane has to go on assignment tomorrow morning. We will work out the timing, but stay tuned to our Twitter feed at Soccer Today SPN to never miss a live show. And until tomorrow, have a great expansion bid and have a great soccer. You were listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us, sportspodcastingnetwork.com.